website is the mousetrap. Your content is the cheese. Welcome to Content Matters with Barry Feldman and Andy Crestodina.
So much time and energy goes into content marketing. It's a lot of work. But there's one trick that makes it all much easier, makes it much more efficient, and can save you a ton of time. It's the art of repurposing content. So in this episode, we're going to go into the details about how to reduce the effort you put in and reuse the things that you've made, how to recycle things and turn them into other things, as well as redoing and just updating some old content. So welcome to episode 25 of Content Matters, Repurposing.
Yeah, you make a nice problem statement there. I'm looking at a post of mine and a piece of data that emerges every year thanks to the benchmarks thing that Content Marketing Institute and Marketing Props do. And it says this year's says top challenges for B2B marketers. And these problems are producing engaging content, let's skip measuring, producing content consistently, lack of budget, producing a variety of content. There's 6 issues here, and repurposing content is a solution for 4 of them.
Pretty good. Yep, we're gonna hit this one on the head. It's something that a lot of the pros already know and already do quite a bit of, but a lot of people, they kind of start from scratch every time. Unnecessary.
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to make the case that you can actually just wholesale reduction. How does that work? How do we reduce the creation of all new content and save ourselves time that way?
Yeah, let's set up the audience to understand that we have all kinds of words to use under the umbrella of repurpose, and those are reduce, reuse, recycle, and we decided to also say redo. So the first one, I guess, is reduce. I think you can commit to doing what you do, let's say probably blogging, but, certainly could be other forms of content creation at a regular interval, like podcasting. I guess this conversation is probably going to apply better to blogging, vlogging, what have you, but that's a lot of work. It takes resources, research. It takes time to make great blog posts, and if you're interested in those being so great that they land on page 1 of Google searches or any searches for any key terms, you're going to be back at the drawing board a lot. And so it's sort of proven itself now that the best posts are generally time consuming to create, as your blogger research indicates, and they take a lot of work. And we see guys like Brian Dean, he comes up in conversation and probably will again, who doesn't publish all that often. I don't know exactly how often he publishes, but he even if he publishes once a month or once every other month, he makes it count by publishing, absolutely deep posts that are going to accomplish, the search results he's looking for.
Yeah, it's there's 2 schools of thought on this. BuzzSumo and Steve Racing just published a nice piece about less is more. We know from the blogging survey that actually people who publish more often do self-report strong results more frequently than those who publish less often. But there's different approaches. There's different ways to do this, and it's not necessarily true. And no one should ever believe that just quantity is success. It's definitely not the case. You burn a lot of calories just trying to hit that date on your publishing calendar. If you're committed to like 3 times a week, it's rough. It's hard. It's a lot.
Yeah, it calls for compromising the quality probably in the interest of speed, or and this could have affected the results you're talking about, or creating strategies that make it easier to publish more often. You have a multi-author blog. You have outside contributors that give you stuff for affordable price or no price, and you probably curate content as well. But yeah, if you're aiming to kill it with probably mostly written stuff, reduce is a very strong reason and therefore strategy where you can sort of take the pressure off yourself and create better, deeper, more relevant, topical, and useful stuff as opposed to just more stuff.
Right. Okay, so let's get practical. How do we do that?
We're not going forward with our words.
Yeah, no. We're going to read. Well, let's do it. The first was reuse, right?
Yeah, reuse.
Reuse was next.
No, yeah. The first was reduce.
Oh, yeah. We did reuse. I've got a tip for reusing stuff. This is one that I talked about the other day at a presentation. There are things that we do every day that are very closely related to content. In fact, one of the reasons why people say it's tough to create content is because they don't have a lot of time. They're busy with their jobs day to day. Marketing is only one of their roles, maybe. And one of the things that they may be doing day to day in their other roles is keeping in touch with clients, talking to prospects, communicating with friends or colleagues, or just the everyday email. I'm one of those guys that tracks their time. I can tell you I spend 14 hours a week in my inbox. It's a lot of time keeping up. So one thing that it's an old blogging trick, if there is such a thing, it's to use your email, your sent mail folder, as content. We're all writing. Every day we produce content in email. We're answering people's questions, so we know the topics are relevant, and we're doing so in a personal tone, which means that we're writing something that would likely connect with an audience. So the idea of reusing your email and spinning it into content is a super powerful trick. So for 3 years, every time I sent an email that answered a question, I saved it in a folder. I waited too long before doing this, but after 3 years, I finally went through and took that stuff out of there, put it all in a document. It was 92 pages. Think about that. You're writing a book every day in your email. All you have to do is to remember to save that stuff in a folder or copy yourself, right? I put mine in a folder called Content Marketing. And I got to the point where I'm just like, I put it all in there. Then next steps was to turn that raw material into categories and broke it up into 8 or 10 documents, each answering different types of questions. And immediately, there's 2 or 3 articles that jumped out of there. They're almost born whole from the womb. Like these are ready to go. And the key phrases are lined up right there because they're answering questions. The question is a target phrase. For example, how to turn a press release into a blog post. Yeah, I wrote 300 words on that topic. I just have to build it up and add formatting and images and links and quotes from friends. Pretty soon I've got a great piece on that. So I have months of great stuff that I can use and publish simply by repurposing my content specifically to be reusing my sent mail folder. That's just a great way to turbocharge your production. Write long, detailed emails, but save them and reuse them in content.
It is indeed. Hang a footnote on that because Andy has a great post on the Orbit blog about extracting things you've written in email as fodder for your content. And so that's just one example of how to do that. I think inside of any organization that has pitch decks and videos and internal communications and technical documents and stuff are reusable assets.
Processes, best practices. Do you have publishing guidelines or checklists that you use? A lot of companies have checklists. I did this once I went up to a developer, a project manager, and said, "What's our process for launching websites?" That's our service here, of course. And they said, "Oh, here it is. Here's a detailed launch checklist." I turned that thing I added a bit to it, removed a few things that were proprietary to us and relevant only to us. 55-point website launch checklist. Go search for website launch checklist. It ranks number 1. I took an internal document, turned it into a high-ranking article that people read, share, and subscribe to every day.
Yeah, so there's, in a way, there's a little grayness between what we mean by reuse and recycle. And in the instance of extracting ideas from PowerPoints or emails or internal documents, you're kind of doing both, right? You're smart to recycle that stuff because it never was, unless you made a conscious effort to do it, it never was going to surface as a marketing content, and so it should. And so recycling can be, technically speaking, I'm moving forward, but I want to jump back and make a point about reuse. Recycling is sort of classic repurposing where this conversation that we're having is meant to be consumed, on your mobile device with your headphones connected, right? It's a podcast. But, like Andy says, never let a good conversation go to waste. It could probably be an infographic, and it could definitely be a transcript that becomes part of an ebook or that simply becomes a blog post. So recycling is considering what you're creating and how it would be, more easily become used in different media.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
The important point I wanted to make about reusing, and this comes from a recent blog post of mine. I have these conversations a lot. My clients are sometimes big and sometimes small, and they come to me with big budgets, small budgets, and no budgets. And the question is, how can we accomplish something on a small budget? And my answer is, well, you can't accomplish much on a zero budget.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think forward, if you think big, and that's my answer really, think big, that falls under reuse. So I say, make something great, phenomenal. Make these investments in time and research and writing and production and promotion up front, such that you're creating a big piece that has chapters and segments, and do that strategically such that you can reuse all that stuff in pieces, right? So you, instead of writing a blog post about the entire ebook, it becomes a lot of blog posts because the ebook tackles a lot of topics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so smart. Think ahead. It's just planning in advance. And the converse of that would be to think about structure in advance, and as you produce little pieces, blog into a bigger piece, right? You're writing a little article here. That's going to become part of an ebook later. In fact, I recommended this once to actually sit down and make an outline of everything that you know on one professional topic. And it could become a giant table of contents. This is how people blog into a book. You want to be an author? Write that book gradually, one post at a time. So it's just all it is more forethought. You wrote that great thing, planning to atomize it or break it down. You wrote that little thing, planning to combine it and make it something larger. And that is the periodic table of content, which was as opposed to that kind of a little infographic thing that I made long ago, which we can share. It's a guide for repurposing and making big things into little ones, or combining little things into big things.
Yeah. All right. So we hit those pretty strongly, and then those often come up in conversations about repurposing. But Andy has an interesting strategy where he redoes things, and those things I'll let you explain. Obviously, include blog posts where you have your reasons. But surprisingly, it also includes this, something as grand as a book. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, the idea is to, rather than make something new, it's always our impulse to make something new. And a lot of content marketers wrongly assume that their audience is already tired of that topic, or you wrote it 3 years ago, so you've already covered it. And what else are you going to write? You have to come up with some brand new thing every time. In fact, what a lot of the pros do, and we mentioned Brian Dean at the top, at backlinkcode.com. Backlink Code is where he publishes. His philosophy is to never write something new unless all of his old stuff is already ranking where he wants it to rank. In other words, he's got like 50 articles on his site that all should be ranking high. And if one of them isn't, he's going to go work on that some more before making something new. That's an extreme example, but he publishes very little. He mostly redoes and it just goes back and improves and fixes his old content. Now, the example that I use where I'm talking about doing this specifically for search, this is going to be a little bit technical here for a second. If you publish something that attracts links that people liked and they referred to and they cited it, it might have been a piece of research. It might have been an infographic. People link to infographics all the time. That piece that you created, that URL, has authority. People have linked to it. It's a credible page. But it may not have relevance. Two parts of SEO, right? Authority and relevance. It may not have relevance because, let's say it's an infographic, it's all a giant image. There's not a lot of text there. It doesn't have a lot of key phrase relevance. So you can actually go repurpose old URLs, redo that piece of content as a longer form piece of text-based content, or go update that thing that's almost ranking high. Resist the urge to constantly come up with something new or original or brand new that your audience probably has never seen. Just if something hasn't been done in a while, or if you have an old page on your site, or you run a report that shows you people have been linking to a certain URL, go ask yourself if there isn't an opportunity to get more leverage from that URL. Don't update the URL itself. Just make it a better page on the topic. I did this once for an article I wrote about internal linking, doubled the traffic. I did it again for an article about website navigation, 460% more traffic. I just kept the URL the same, went back, added depth, added detail, added answers, added quotes, added images, added length, and just made it an awesome page, a much better page. There's a lot of value there. And you teed me up, but the redoing is also my strategy for the book. Content Chemistry is in its 4th edition. If I can go improve something, make it better, update that, remove the out-of-date stuff, I don't need to make another book. I'm going to keep making my current book better. That's the thinking, and it may not be intuitive for a lot of content marketers.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to argue with that strategy. I mean, it's certainly an unusual strategy that people should hopefully realize. You just open their eyes up to, because are you let's say you blog weekly or even more often. Are you a marketer or not? You could tell me not. You could say I do it because my audience wants to be entertained or get recipes or look at pictures or something. But if indeed search ranks high in your want lists and goals, then your time's best spent doing what you just described. Figuring out the posts that are nearly where you want them to be and working on them some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't need 600 articles and unique URLs. You might get far better results if you had 50 or 75 or 100, and you made each of those literally your best attempt at the best page on the internet for that topic. You can keep sharing it. You can keep putting it into heavy social rotation. You can you can update it and send it again as a newsletter. My newsletter today is an infographic about the difference between search engine optimization and social media. It's not a new URL. I am reusing the old URL. I simply made it a better infographic. I went deeper on the topic. This thing was years old. People are interacting with it now as if it's fresh.
Yeah, it'll make for a cool case study to prove what we talked about, or at least I hope. Another cool thing as we wind down here is the idea when you repurpose this stuff or reuse, recycle, what have you. It's a learning experience. There's very few conversations we have that don't get into metrics and analytics to some extent. Mm-hmm. And I think you force yourself to tinker with or experiment with media that you otherwise wouldn't. And so, for example, if you've never taken a piece of content and made it a slideshow and put it on SlideShare, it won't be long before you have the ability to figure out content optimization strategies, for lack of a better word, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where, what media works, what time, what audiences, and so you're going to figure out, maybe this isn't such a good idea, this media, maybe it's not getting the traffic, leads, and sales that I hoped it would, or maybe it is, maybe you make an amazing discovery. Why wasn't I spending more time, doing this tactic mm-hmm. in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's any action that gives you data will give you better subsequent actions, as long as you're paying close attention and doing a bit of analysis. So I think it's time to move on. Are you ready?
Okay.
Mousetraps and cheese. This is where Barry gives his best traffic tip and content marketing tip about increasing the top line and getting people to our sites. And I'll talk briefly about a conversion tip. That's the mousetrap tip, which is about getting a greater percentage of our visitors to take action. So what do you got for us?
All right, a couple of things, sort of the polar opposites of each other with the same goal in mind, is getting more for less. Is that the strategy I talked about when going big is think big and create something big and then slice it up. And I've heard that called turkey dinner, for the metaphors obvious. Big rock content is what Jason Miller calls it. Mm-hmm. Pillar content and so forth. Mm-hmm. So that my favorite, because it's actually easy to understand, is divisible content, right? You create something that you can divide into pieces. The mm-hmm. opposite is also a great strategy. And Andy touched on this before, where he said briefly, you're going to do a series of blog posts. So I'll tell a quick story about something I did. And this, for lack of a better name, from the same source that came up with divisible content, is called additive content. Mm-hmm. And it's a great solution when you don't have thousands of dollars to part with up front. And what you do is preconceive what you're going to create, which is a series of things on a central theme, and mm-hmm. then you start creating it, and then you put it together. And so instead of dividing it, you're adding it together. So I wrote a series of interviews with some top marketers on the topics of enterprise B2B challenges. We called it something like darkness in the age of I forgot exactly what it's called. Shedding light on B2B marketing darkness. So I talked to 5 top marketing experts, and from that, for Kapost, I gave them the 5 blog posts that are interviews. Mm-hmm. So now this is going to make a lot of sense, because I'm going to tell you what happened next. Then we said, that's great content. It performed well. We shouldn't be done with it. Let's make it an ebook. Mm-hmm. And we did. And the ebook's doing very well. And then we said, all right, let's have a webinar in between now and the webinar. And the webinar was this week. We got some of those top experts on the line. We promoted it by doing guest posts about it. So I wrote like a greatest hits. I extracted like one quote from each interview and threw that into a post, which appeared, I think, on Marketing Profs. And they extracted some of this stuff and made an infographic. Along the way, as we're promoting all these things, there's lots of email that keeps touching on the same topic. Of course, that ebook has lots of quotes, and as you probably should, they made those like
little visuals.
Yeah, little visuals. Like, here's a headshot of Barry, and here's what he said. So those things are flying around for all the reasons that I just discussed: the webinar, the ebook, the podcast. I mean, not the podcast, the blog post. And now all that stuff. Compose has a rich library that grows over time that says, you can filter it by webinar and ebook and blog posts and so forth, and all that stuff lives on. So that's quite a pile of stuff they did with the effort being as humble as 5 interviews.
Yeah, and let's give a shout out to a mutual friend and a pro, just all-star content strategist, Dina Goldasich from wellplannedweb.com. Dina has this tactic where she goes into her clients and interviews her clients' clients, and in those conversations, she gets, of course, deep insights and true intimacy with the end user and the person who receives the value in the end. But she turns that stuff into like 1 hour interviews. She has this diagram that shows there's like 5 blog posts and 3 other articles and 2 white papers and an infographic and 5 testimonial quotes. It's like, wow, that's actually it. That's it exactly. That's the whole game. Because it's not, content marketing is not format specific. It's format independent. It's all about ethically spinning that thing into many things, turning it into, it's alchemy, it's chemistry, it's turning the stuff into more stuff so that original piece of research, the writing, the inspiration, that first seed can grow into so many other things. This is exactly how the pros did it, and Barry, that was a great example. Here's my mousetrap tip, which is, I mentioned just now actually, because Dina said she turns these things into quotes and testimonials. Conversion means you built trust. And trust comes from providing evidence. And social proof is one such type of evidence, testimonials. Now, if you just listen day to day and you're paying attention moment to moment as you open your inbox and get through your email, or as you scan through social streams and interact with your clients and customers, you're going to see little happy moments. You're going to see that smiley face and that compliment and that vote of trust. So if you're paying some attention as you just go day to day through your routine and you get that email, thank you, put it in a good file. Save it. Have a folder in your email called the good file. Take a screenshot of that Facebook post or tweet that said something nice about your product or whatever it is you do, and throw that in a folder. Now, when the time comes and you've got an hour to work on your website, go back into that good file or look in that folder and grab those things out, reach out to those people and ask them in a polite, sensitive, considerate way if they wouldn't mind letting you put them on your website. Because that's where testimonials come from. That's the moment when it happens. That is the art of repurposing for conversion, is to listen carefully for those moments where social proof is born. Just don't let that, we say never waste a good conversation by having it in private. Don't let that flow past you in the social stream without you catching that and using it to maximize your conversion rates. That's a mousetrap tip. And that wraps up today's show.
Let's have another one. Let's talk a couple weeks from today, same time and bat channel, about expanding, scaling your content marketing team. Now, don't miss this show if you don't have the budget to expand your content marketing team. The goal is to scale your content. And so I want to talk not just about headcounts and teammates, but talents. Okay, so let's treat it as how to expand or scale your content marketing talent so that you accomplish more.
Wow, I need to listen to this one. That's a great topic.
Well, I hope you're going to be on it too.
Well, I'm going to be learning from you. But this was a good one. I love this one we did today. It's a hidden trick that the pros are really good at, but not everyone does. I hope everyone got some value from it. Looking forward to the next one.